Hi there. My name's Alexandra. I found out my husband was cheating with my sister. I divorced him, but that wasn't the end. 3 months later, I got 103 missed calls from him in one night, and that's still not the worst part. My parents? They threw me out and threw her an engagement party. Then they asked me, begged me, to save her life. It started with laughter. Not mine. Never mine. I was standing in the corner of a polished ballroom at Cassian's company gala, swirling cheap champagne in a fancy flute, trying to look like I belonged. He was across the room, surrounded by coworkers, who all seemed to admire him just a little too much. Ashbridge wasn't a big city, but tonight, the venue looked like something out of a magazine. Marble floors, live string quartet, all meant to dazzle. And it did, for about 15 minutes. Then I noticed how Cassian kept checking his phone, eyes flicking nervously toward the stage. He'd been on edge all week, brushing off my questions with tight smiles and lines like, "It's just a big deal at work, babe. Don't make it more than it is." I wish I'd made more of it. Someone bumped into me gently. "Your husband's getting an award tonight, right? You must be proud." I smiled politely. "I am." What I didn't say, I didn't even know which award. Cassian had stopped sharing those details months ago. The host stepped up to the podium, voice booming through the room. "Let's take a quick walk down memory lane before we honor tonight's leadership team." The lights dimmed. A large screen flickered on behind him. Slideshow time. I braced myself for grainy team-building photos and corporate bonding nonsense. The first few slides were harmless. Company outings, ribbon cuttings, someone winning a chili cook-off. Then came the photo. It popped up like a slap. Cassian, standing barefoot on a beach, laughing. Next to him, my sister, Seren. She was in his arms, her head tilted into his neck, his hand casually resting on her hip like it belonged there. Her smile was wide and smug. A few people chuckled. "Is this real?" Someone whispered near me. I didn't move. Cassian stood frozen too. His jaw clenched, eyes locked on the screen, like maybe if he stared hard enough, it would go away. It didn't. Someone from HR scrambled up to the laptop, yanking the cable from the projector. The screen went black. But it was too late. I had seen it. We all had. Cassian looked at me across the ballroom. He opened his mouth, maybe to explain, maybe to lie. But I turned and walked straight out. I didn't wait for him to follow. I didn't want to hear it. Not yet. Not when my head was pounding and my skin felt like it was on fire. By the time I got home, the silence wrapped around me like armor. I poured a glass of wine with a shaky hand and sat down in the living room, still in my heels. I stared at our wedding photo on the bookshelf, me in lace, him in navy blue, the ocean behind us. I picked it up and turned it face down. That version of us didn't exist anymore. Red flags flashed in my mind like a bad montage. Seren had moved back to Ashbridge just a few months ago. Broke, dumped, and conveniently unemployed. Cassian had suggested helping her find work. It's not a big deal, she's my sister-in-law. And somehow she landed in his department. They started hanging out after hours for project meetings. Inside jokes I wasn't part of. The way they'd lower their voices when I walked into the room. God, how stupid was I? When Cassian finally came through the door 2 hours later, he looked like he'd been through a war. Tie undone, hair messy, eyes puffy. "Lex," he started. "Look, I didn't know that photo would show up. It was old. It meant nothing." "Don't," I said quietly. He took a step closer. "Please, you know how close our families used to be. That trip was forever ago. It's not what you think." I stood. "We'll talk tomorrow. I'm tired." He opened his mouth again, probably to toss out another line from the cheater's handbook. "You're overreacting." Or maybe, "It wasn't like that." I didn't care. I walked into the bedroom, locked the door, and sat on the floor in the dark. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just stayed there, still in my dress, the zipper halfway down my back. I didn't sleep that night. Instead, I stayed up making a plan. I could still hear the zipper, not the one on my dress, but the one I imagined, unfastening trust, tearing through years of loyalty like it was nothing but cheap fabric. The morning after the gala, I didn't speak to Cassian. He left early, claiming an emergency client call, but I knew better. It was always something lately, late nights, unread texts, meetings that couldn't wait. He'd been pulling away one excuse at a time. I just hadn't had the nerve to name it. I sat at the kitchen table for hours, nursing a cold cup of coffee, staring at the salt shaker like it might tell me what to do next. That's when I remembered the way Seren had been in the house. Too often, too easily. She'd stopped knocking after the first week. There were moments when I'd walk in from work and find her already in my kitchen, stirring something on the stove like she belonged there. "Just helping Cass with dinner," she'd chirp. "He's so helpless without me." Back then, I'd laughed. I thought I was laughing with her. Now I realized I'd been the punchline. I opened my laptop and Googled something I never thought I'd type. Best discrete security cameras for home. It arrived the next day, the size of a thumb drive. I tucked it behind the curtain rod in our bedroom, angled perfectly at the bed. I told myself it was to clear my doubts, but deep down, I already knew. 2 nights later, I came home early from the grocery store. Cassian hadn't expected me. His car wasn't in the driveway, but I still walked softly as I entered. I went straight to the bedroom. Everything looked untouched, but the pillows weren't where I left them. It was subtle, like someone had turned them around. I didn't say anything. I just grabbed the SD card and slipped it into my laptop. The footage was grainy, but clear enough. Cassian walked in, towel wrapped low around his waist. He sat on the edge of the bed, scrolling through his phone. Then Serene entered, topless. She tossed a shirt on the chair, laughing. This high-pitched, breathy sound I hadn't heard since high school. He looked up, smiled, and opened his arms. They kissed, long and slow. Then she climbed into our bed, my bed, like it was hers. As she lay back against my pillows, she said, "This mattress is better than anything I had with Kevin. You really scored here." He laughed. "I try to keep the women in my life comfortable." I didn't move. I didn't pause the video. I just sat there and watched them erase me. I had made that bed that morning, fluffed the pillows, lit a candle on the dresser, folded his t-shirts, and placed them neatly in his drawer. I had done all the things you do when you think home is sacred, and he brought her into it like it was nothing. When Cassian came home later that evening, he acted like the world was perfectly intact. He dropped his keys in the bowl by the door and called out, "Lex? You hungry? I was thinking takeout." I was in the living room, staring at the turned-down photo again. He walked over and placed a hand on my shoulder. I didn't flinch. "I'm not hungry," I said quietly. "I'm going to bed early." He looked at me, confused, maybe even concerned, but I could see it now. Not love, just fear of being caught. I turned and walked to the bedroom. That night, I waited until I heard his breath even out, soft and slow, like a child who believed no one was watching. Then I opened the laptop again, not to rewatch, but to start taking notes. I began compiling passwords, account numbers, lease agreements. I texted my friend Veronica at 2 a.m. "Do you know someone who handles divorce?" Quietly. She replied within minutes. "I know the best." "Want me to connect you tomorrow?" I stared at that message, my phone screen glowing in the dark. Then I slid to the floor next to the door, knees to my chest. No tears, no screams, just stillness. I had been erased from my own life, but I was still breathing, and that meant I still had choices. I could forgive a lie, but I can't share my bed with betrayal. The day the envelope arrived, I was folding laundry in my tiny one-bedroom rental on the edge of Ashbridge. It had been a week since I moved out, 2 since I watched my marriage collapse in the glow of my laptop screen. The mailbox squeaked like it always did. Nothing special about it. Bills, an ad for a tire rotation, and then a cream-colored envelope. Handwritten. My name. My address. I thought it was from my lawyer, maybe a follow-up to the divorce paperwork. I tore it open with one hand while holding a warm towel against my hip. It was a card. Not just any card, a wedding-themed one. Gold script, embossed letters. A photo fell out and fluttered to the floor. I stared at it. Cassian and Seren, in a sunflower field. She was in a white dress, not quite a gown, but close enough. He stood behind her, arms wrapped around her waist, lips pressed against her cheek. Her eyes were closed. She looked blissful. And on the back, in my mother's handwriting, "Family is everything. You're still welcome if you choose love over hate." Mom. I sat down slowly, as if gravity had suddenly doubled. There was no invitation inside, no date, no details, just that card and that photo. So it wasn't a mistake, it was a message. I picked up the phone and dialed my mother's number without thinking. She answered on the third ring, her voice too casual, like I'd just called to chat about recipes. "Hi, honey. Got your mail?" "Was that a joke?" I asked, my voice flat. A pause. Then, "Number. I just thought you should know. They're getting engaged. It's happening." "And you're hosting it?" I asked. Another pause. "They need support. We all do." "I needed support," I said, sharper than I intended. "When he cheated on me, with my sister." My mother's voice shifted, calm, cool, dismissive. "You're too emotional. You always take things so personally." I blinked, stunned. "You think this isn't personal? They didn't mean to hurt you. Things just happened. Serene deserves happiness too." There it was. That line again, the family mantra. Serene deserves happiness. As if mine was disposable, optional. "I'm hanging up now," I said. "Alexandra, don't be dramatic." I ended the call. My hands trembled. Not with rage this time, but with something heavier, older. Memories crashed in like waves. Me, grounded for coming home 10 minutes late. Seren, caught sneaking in 2 hours past curfew, laughing, eyes red, smelling like smoke, and getting a hug. Me, asking for $50 for a local volleyball camp, being told to earn it myself. Seren, flying to dance competitions in 3 different states before she turned 16. Dad never said anything, just nodded along with Mom, like a shadow that learned to keep quiet. I crumpled the card and threw it into the sink. Then I stood there, gripping the counter, breathing through my teeth. Later that night, I opened my journal. Not the one where I kept records for the lawyer. This one was just for me. I wrote, "I want a home where no one walks on eggshells. I want children who never feel invisible. I want a love that doesn't come with side glances and secrets. I want peace." Then I took the photo, held it over the sink, and lit a match. The paper curled. The faces distorted. The flames swallowed their joy like it had never existed. And I watched it all turn to ash. I wasn't just losing a marriage. I was burying a bloodline. Brightmoor didn't feel like home yet, but at least it didn't smell like him. The apartment was small, just enough space for a couch, a bed, and a kitchen that looked out onto a quiet street lined with maple trees. I filled the windowsill with succulents and herbs I didn't know how to keep alive, and every morning I tried anyway. That counted for something, didn't it? Work was remote now. I took calls in leggings and slippers. I joined a local women's group that met once a week at a bakery down the block. We didn't talk about trauma, not directly. We traded stories about bad dates, bad bosses, bad habits. Some of them knew what I wasn't saying. They let the silence stretch long enough for me to fill it when I was ready. One night, I made myself dinner. A simple stir-fry, the kind Cassian used to complain about. "Could we just order something? I'm not in the mood for kale again." I ate it proudly in my pajamas with a glass of Pinot, watching the rain tap against the window. It was the first time I felt almost okay. Then came the knock. Not a light one. 3 heavy thuds that didn't belong in this quiet place. I stood still, holding my glass midair. The second round of knocking was faster, more urgent. I crept to the door, my feet silent against the floor, and looked through the peephole. Cassian. Of course it was. I didn't move. He stepped back from the door, rubbing his hands together like he was nervous. Lex, please. I just want to talk. I'm not here to argue. My heart didn't race. It dropped. That kind of heavy sinking, that's not fear, not exactly. Just the weight of knowing what's about to happen and not wanting to face it. He spoke again, softer this time. 5 minutes. That's all I'm asking. I opened the door, but only to the length of the chain. What do you want? I asked. He looked tired. Like the kind of tired that wasn't physical. I messed up, I know I did. That's not new information. He sighed. I didn't know who else to talk to. Things with Seren, they're not what I thought. I leaned my forehead lightly against the doorframe. You mean she's not the fantasy you built her into? She changed. No, I said. You just finally saw her for who she's always been. He didn't answer right away. I'm not asking for anything, he added. I just thought maybe we could have some closure, so we're not enemies. I almost laughed. Closure? I repeated. Is that what this is? You burned the house down, and now you want to talk about how warm the fire was? That's not fair, he muttered. I unlatched the chain and opened the door fully, just long enough to step outside. I didn't invite him in. I wasn't that woman anymore. You broke me, I said quietly. And now you want to wrap it all up with a neat bow labeled closure? Number, you don't get that. He shifted on his feet. I didn't come here to make things worse. You did, I said, just by showing up. I miss you, he admitted, eyes low. I shook my head. No, Cassian. You miss who I was when I still believed in you. That woman's gone. We stood there for a moment. Wind brushed past us, tugging at the loose strands of my hair. He looked like he wanted to say something more, but I raised my hand. I'm building something new, and it doesn't include you. I stepped back inside and held the door. Next time, I added, I won't be the one answering. I closed the door, locked it, deadbolt too. Behind it, I exhaled. He stayed out there for another minute. I didn't look. Eventually, his footsteps faded down the hall. Let that be the last time I see his face. Let that be the end of all explanations. Filing the divorce papers felt less like an ending and more like throwing open a window that had been painted shut for years. I didn't cry. I didn't hesitate. I walked into that courthouse in jeans and a blazer, handed over the documents with both hands, and walked out feeling 10 pounds lighter. I bought myself a bouquet of tulips afterward. Yellow ones. The kind he once said looked cheap. They looked like freedom to me. That night, I poured a glass of wine, turned on my favorite old jazz record, and let the music fill the apartment. There was no toast, no speech, just a small moment with myself, the first real celebration I'd had in a long, long time. It's done, I whispered. This is the first day of my real life. But real life, as always, doesn't wait long to test you. The next morning, my phone buzzed on the nightstand. Still half asleep, I reached for it, expecting some auto-payment notification or a calendar reminder. Instead, it was a text from my bank. Joint checking. Balance $0, 0 cents. I sat up fast. Opened the app, refreshed. Still 0. I blinked hard, thinking maybe I was misreading it. Maybe it was a glitch. Then another notification popped up. Large withdrawal processed. $28,437 authorized user. Cassian Rowe. The blood drained from my face. I called the bank immediately, pacing the apartment like it could undo what just happened. Yes, ma'am, it was a fully authorized transaction, the representative told me, in a calm voice that made me want to scream. Since the account was joint and the divorce hasn't finalized, both parties retain full access. He didn't just leave me, I muttered. He looted the ruins on the way out. I hung up without saying goodbye. My hands trembled, not from fear, but from fury. He had waited, calculated, just enough time to make sure I wouldn't suspect anything, just long enough for me to start believing I was safe. I texted him, not a rant, just this. You can take the money, I'll build again, but don't mistake silence for surrender. He didn't reply. I spent the rest of the day calling my lawyer, updating all the necessary forms, closing what was left of our shared accounts. I set up a new one in my name only. I canceled every subscription, every automatic payment that tied me to him in any way. Then, I opened my jewelry box and started separating pieces I hadn't worn in years, gifts from him, from my parents. I'd sell what I could. The rest? I didn't need weight in my life that no longer held meaning. I didn't cry. I didn't even swear. I just moved. That evening, I took a walk with Nina, a woman I'd met at the women's group. She had gone through her own war, 10 years with someone who made her doubt her own reflection. She knew the quiet rage that lives just under your skin. "I'm not okay," I admitted. "You don't have to be," she said. "You just have to stay in motion." "I'm angry." "Good," she smiled. "That means the fire's still in you." We walked in silence for a while, our breath fogging in the cool air. I watched a group of kids ride their bikes down the sidewalk, laughing so loudly it echoed. I remembered thinking once that Cassian and I might have had that. Kids, chaos, bedtime stories. Now, I was glad we didn't. When I got home, I put the tulips in water. They had started to bloom, stretching toward the kitchen window, like they knew something better was coming. He took the money. I kept the fire. I was starting to breathe again. The days had fallen into a rhythm. Simple, steady, healing. Work came easier. My appetite had returned. I even joined a community yoga class down the block, where no one knew my story and no one cared who I used to be. Rowan stopped by now and then, never asking for more than I could give. He brought coffee, small talk, warmth. We weren't a thing, not yet, but he made the silence feel safe. One morning, I was chopping vegetables for a soup recipe I'd saved 3 months ago and only now had the energy to try. My phone buzzed on the counter, email notification, subject line, HR follow-up, workplace conduct concern. I frowned, tapped it open. The email was formal, too formal. Attached was a scanned document labeled, Internal Complaint, Conduct Violation, filed by Seren Rowe. I stood frozen, knife still in my hand, the soup forgotten. The accusations? Threatening texts? Unwanted contact with workplace associates. Verbal harassment. They claimed I had been using my connection to Cassian's job to damage her reputation and stability, that I was unstable, that I needed to be formally addressed. My stomach twisted. It was a lie, every word. And she knew it. I hadn't spoken a single word to anyone at that company since I left town. I hadn't sent a message, not even to Cassian, not since the text about the stolen money. I hadn't even said her name out loud in weeks. I reread the document, this time slower, the legalese feeling more like an assault than protection. And then it hit me. How did they even get my contact information? I called the HR rep listed in the email. She was polite, professional, apologetic. "We used the emergency contact information left on file when you helped refer Ms. Rowe for her initial interview," she said. Of course. I'd been the one to suggest the job. I had emailed the hiring manager myself. I had written her a glowing referral. She wasn't just trying to erase me from the picture. She wanted to rewrite the whole history, starting with painting me as the problem. I closed my eyes and breathed deeply through my nose. "She's not satisfied taking him," I said out loud to no one. "She wants to finish the job." I opened my laptop. I spent the next 2 hours crafting a calm, concise response. I stated clearly that I had made 0 contact. I attached screenshots, proof of silence. I forwarded a copy of my divorce filing and included a note that I would pursue legal measures should the harassment continue. Then I wrote something else. I opened my private blog. It wasn't massive, but it had grown over the years into a space shared among women who had been through things, real things, betrayal, divorce, estrangement. It wasn't therapy, but it was community. I wrote a new post. The title came to me easily. What they take when they can't touch you anymore. I didn't name names. I didn't need to. I wrote about being used as a stepping stone and then accused of being the storm. I wrote about how some people won't rest until they've convinced the world that you're what they broke. And I wrote this. They don't just want your silence, they want your disappearance. So if you're still here, still standing, don't let them win. The post went live that night. Within hours, the comments started rolling in. Women from everywhere. Some recognized Seren's name from old dance circuits. Others didn't know her, but they knew the story, the pattern, the gaslighting. One comment stuck with me. They tried to bury you, but they forgot you were a seed. Rowan texted not long after. Just 5 words. Proud of you, I'm here, always. I smiled for the first time that day, and then my phone buzzed again. A new message. Unknown number. Can we talk privately? Dad. No greeting, no apology. Just that one line, as if the past year hadn't unfolded like a slow-motion car crash I was forced to watch from behind the glass. I didn't answer right away. I stared at the screen until it dimmed, then locked. I told myself not to open it again, but I did. I typed, "What is it?" The dots appeared almost instantly. "Your sister's sick. She doesn't have long. Please don't make this worse than it has to be." I blinked. My stomach turned cold. Another message followed. "It's not about who was wrong. It's about what's right. You're the only match we have." I read the words 3 times. There was no, "We're sorry." No, "We should have believed you." Just the ask. Clean, transactional. They wanted my body, not my truth, not my forgiveness, not even my presence, just my kidney. My phone buzzed again. "We're not asking you to move back. Just think about what kind of person you want to be." I tossed the phone onto the couch and walked straight to the sink. My hands needed something to do. I started scrubbing a mug I'd already washed, the sponge squeaking against ceramic while my mind screamed through every inch of silence. He didn't reach out when Cassian lied, or when Seren posted that photo, or when Mom defended them like I was some jealous stranger. But now that their precious daughter was sick, now I was useful again. That night, Rowan came over. I didn't say much. I didn't have to. He saw my face and just nodded, giving me space. We watched a movie, sort of. It played in the background while I sat stiff on the couch, arms folded, staring at the wall. When he left, I checked my email before bed. Subject, "Thought you'd want to see this." From Marla, I knew better. But I opened it anyway. There it was. An image, photoshopped, obviously. A smiling picture of Callan, my son, cropped from a school photo and placed between Cassian and Seren, standing in front of some generic suburban home, all of them holding hands like a family unit ripped from a magazine cover. Captioned in cursive at the bottom, "This is family, even if you won't accept it." My hands started shaking so violently, I dropped the phone. They had used my child, to manipulate me, to redefine reality. I picked up the phone and dialed. Mom answered on the second ring. "I knew you'd see it. I just wanted you to—" "How dare you?" I said, low and sharp. "How dare you use my son as a pawn?" "He deserves to know his family," she shot back. "Don't be selfish, Alexandra." I laughed. Not because it was funny, because it was the only sound I had left that wouldn't turn into a scream. "You mean he deserves to know the man who slept with his aunt? Or the woman who tried to erase his mother from the picture?" There was silence. "You always thought blood mattered more than truth," I said. "But let me be clear, blood means nothing without respect, and you have none left." I hung up. I blocked every number tied to them, deleted voicemails I hadn't even listened to, called my lawyer the next morning, and requested a formal no-contact order. "They didn't just try to erase me," I said, voice flat. "They tried to rewrite me." That evening, I found myself on the back porch with a blanket wrapped around my shoulders, staring into the dusk. Rowan came and sat beside me. He didn't speak. He didn't touch me. He just waited. After a long while, I said, "They can live the rest of their lives knowing I was the only one who could save her, and I chose me." He reached for my hand, just held it. No pressure, just presence. And then, as if the universe couldn't let me have a single moment of stillness, the mail came. A thick envelope from the hospital. I opened it slowly. "You are a confirmed match for the transplant, awaiting your scheduling availability." I stared at the letter, feeling nothing and everything all at once. I was a match, but that didn't mean I had to give them anything. The flight back to Ashbridge was quiet, like the sky didn't want to be part of what I was about to do. I didn't take Rowan. I didn't take Callan. I booked a hotel 2 blocks from the hospital and packed only one small bag. No one needed to know I was coming. No one but the hospital coordinator, who had been calling every other day since the match was confirmed. When I walked through the front entrance, the woman at the desk looked up, recognized my name on the schedule, and smiled like this was some kind of reunion. "You're the donor, right? The match?" "They're very relieved." I gave a polite nod. I didn't say a word. I wasn't here to save anyone. The nurse guided me through pre-op intake, even though I hadn't signed a consent form. I let her check my vitals, ask about allergies, hand me a hospital badge. I followed the steps because I needed access, not participation. "I came here for one reason," I said silently to myself as I looked down the hallway toward the transplant wing. "And it's not what they think." The conference room was already full when I arrived. Marla sat in the corner, clutching a tissue as if rehearsing grief. Dale stood behind her, arms crossed, trying too hard to appear composed. The transplant surgeon was flipping through a file, reviewing charts like this was just another Tuesday. And then there was Seren, pale, hollow-eyed, but smiling when she saw me, like nothing had happened, like this was a normal family reunion. "Alex," she said, her voice thin but familiar. "You came." She reached out, her hand twitching from the IV. I didn't move closer yet. I waited for the surgeon to begin. "We're fortunate," he said, addressing the room. "You're an exceptional match, rare, even among siblings. The procedure itself is routine, and your recovery will be closely monitored. Now, before we proceed with consents..." I raised my hand. He paused. Everyone turned toward me. "I'd like to say something." Seren blinked. Marla sat up straighter. Dale narrowed his eyes. I stepped forward and stopped just short of Seren's bed. I looked down at her, at the woman who stole my husband and never once apologized. The woman who posted photos of my child with her arms around him like he was hers. I took her hand, not to comfort, but to hold her still. "Did you hear what they said?" I asked softly. "I'm a perfect match. The only one." Her eyes filled with tears. Hope bloomed across her face. "But I won't save you." The room fell silent. "What?" she whispered. "Why?" "Because you took something from me," I said, steady and sure. "Something I can't get back. And now, for the first time in my life, I get to choose me." Seren started to speak, but I let go of her hand. I turned to my parents. Marla's mouth was open in disbelief. Dale looked like he'd been slapped. "Don't ever contact me again," I told them. "Not for death, not for birth, not for holidays or apologies or redemption. I owe you nothing." "You'll let her die?" Marla asked, stunned. "I'll let her face what she created." And with that, I walked out. No screaming, no drama. Just the sound of my heels clicking against the tile, echoing louder than anything they had left to say. Outside, the air hit my face like water after fire. I inhaled deeply, filling my lungs in a way I hadn't in years. I pulled out my phone and called Rowan. "I did it," I said. I walked away, not in anger, just clarity. There was a pause. Then his voice, warm and grounding. "Come home." I smiled. At the gate, I sat quietly, one hand resting on my lap, the other clutching my boarding pass like it was a passport to something new. That, I whispered to myself, was the only thing I ever gave her. The chance to know what losing feels like. Back in Brightmoor, the trees had started to blush with autumn. Leaves swirled across the porch as my sons played with sidewalk chalk, their giggles carrying into the crisp air like tiny birdsong. I sat on the steps, a cup of tea warming my hands, watching them scribble stick figures and stars across the concrete. Rowan's mother stopped by, as she often did now, holding a paper-wrapped loaf still warm from the oven. She kissed my cheek and said, "You look lighter." I didn't argue. I had finally found quiet. Not the kind that comes from emptiness, but the kind you earn after surviving the noise. And of course, that's when the ghosts came knocking. That night, just after I tucked the boys in, I went to plug in my phone and noticed the screen blinking nonstop. Missed call after missed call. 28, 43, 60, 90. By the time I opened the log, it was 103, every single one from Cassian. I didn't panic. I didn't flinch. I just stared. The final voicemail transcribed itself as I watched. "She's dying. She blames me. I don't know what to do. Please. I'm sorry. Just, please." The desperation was real, but it wasn't mine to carry. Rowan walked in quietly, glanced at my face, then down at the screen. He didn't ask. He simply reached out, turned off the phone, and said, "Let's keep it off tonight." I nodded. I didn't respond to the calls. Not one. Instead, I pulled out a journal I hadn't written in for months. And I wrote, "He chose her. My family chose her. And I chose myself." That's the story. The next morning, Rowan offered to help me change my number. We added new locks to the front and back doors. Upgraded the security cameras too. "You never need to hear from them again," he said. "I don't want to," I replied. And I meant it. Later that afternoon, I opened a storage box I hadn't touched since I moved in. At the bottom, beneath papers and scarves and old receipts, was the wedding photo I had once slammed face down. I looked at it for a long time. Not with anger, not even grief, just clarity. Then I placed it gently in the donation pile. Someone else could use the frame. That evening, after the boys were in bed, I stepped out into the backyard to find fairy lights strung across the trees. A blanket on the grass. 2 glasses of wine. Rowan was waiting, barefoot, holding a basket of crackers and cheese like it was the finest picnic ever planned. "No special reason," he shrugged. "I just wanted a toast." "To what?" I asked, smiling despite myself. He raised his glass. "To choosing peace over proving a point." We clinked glasses, and for once, there was no aftershock waiting to ruin the stillness. Later, as I sat barefoot in the grass, arms around my knees, stars overhead, and warmth beside me, I whispered to myself, "I still carry the scar, but it no longer stings." This was home, not perfect, not polished, but mine. And I was surrounded by sons who knew they were seen, by a partner who chose me in both silence and storm, by a family I built, not one I was born into. There is no next chapter, just the one I write from here, with my own pen. Sometimes the hardest thing you'll ever do is choose yourself, especially when the people who were supposed to love you first are the ones who hurt you the deepest. I used to think loyalty meant staying silent. I used to believe that forgiveness was mandatory, but I've learned something else. You don't owe anyone access to your peace. Not ex-husbands, not blood relatives, not the ones who rewrite history just to make themselves look like heroes. You are allowed to walk away from people who handed you grief in the name of family. You are allowed to heal on your own terms. And if you're watching this right now, maybe going through something just as messy, just as painful, I want you to know, you're not alone. You are not broken, and you don't need their approval to rebuild something beautiful. So let me ask you this. Have you ever had to walk away from someone you loved because they kept choosing to hurt you? What would choosing yourself look like for you today? I'd love to hear your story in the comments. And hey, if this video moved you, made you pause, or helped you feel seen, drop a 1 in the comments or tell me where you're watching from. If it didn't speak to you, I'd still love to know why and where in the world you're tuning in from. Let's connect. Let's grow through what we go through. And if you want to hear more stories like this, stories that heal, challenge, and empower, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you never miss the next one. You matter. Your voice matters. And this space, it's for us. Until next time, take care of your heart. It's the only one you've got.
I'd like to order lunch for the next 10 years. Is that possible? On the brink of closing, my family's diner was in a tough spot. The one who placed the order was a woman as beautiful as a model. Faced with this unexpected order, both my parents and I were stunned. Then the woman who ordered started chuckling at the sight of us. Is 10 years too short? How about 30 years? Seeing her mischievously smiling, I was reminded of an old friend. My name is Michael. This year, I'll turn 29. Currently, I work at my family's diner, run by my dad, mom, and me, a family of 3. We're not rich, but we're happy. Our diner is a local eatery frequented occasionally by my high school classmates. I grew up in this neighborhood. I attended a local public high school. I wasn't particularly bright, but I spent 3 fulfilling years having fun with my classmates. There was a girl I was interested in. Her name was Emily, and we were in the same class for 3 years. She was slim and pretty like a model. On the other hand, I wasn't much of a looker. I didn't have enough confidence to pursue someone out of my league. What concerned me was her pale complexion. Emily was popular with the boys. She was respected by the girls, but no one seemed to notice her pallor. But I couldn't bring myself to mention it. In that way, I couldn't take my eyes off her. In high school, we brought our own lunch. My mom always nagged me to eat 3 meals a day, no matter what. Being from a diner family, my lunch was always hearty. It was enough to satisfy any growing boy. However, Emily always skipped lunch. One day, I asked one of her close friends about it. Why doesn't Emily eat her lunch? I somehow felt uneasy asking her directly. Oh, Emily is on a diet. She only eats 2 meals a day. It's amazing how thin she is, Emily's friend told me. Why do girls want to be so thin? I couldn't understand. Well, I guess that's just how it is. I was concerned, but that's where I left it. Then one day something happened. Emily's friend was absent. The friend I usually eat lunch with was called away for a club activity. Emily, as usual, was studying alone during lunchtime. While others were spreading out their lunch, Emily, is it okay if I sit here? Curious, I took the seat in front of her. The class was noisy, and no one paid any mind to us. Oh, yeah, Emily replied. Aren't you eating lunch? I heard you were on a diet. As I said that, I opened my own lunch. Yes, that's right, but take care not to ruin your health. Everyone says you're slim and praises you, but you look pale. When I said that, Emily stopped what she was doing. Her smile from earlier was gone. Her face was tense, and I froze, wondering if I had said something wrong. And no, but I do think you're beautiful. What I meant wasn't that you're unattractive or anything. Sorry, that was a poor choice of words. I really didn't mean any harm. Being on a diet is important too, I apologized. After hearing that, Emily's expression softened a bit. No, it's okay. You were just worried, right? With her smile, I hesitated and then took out sandwiches wrapped in plastic that I had brought separately for my lunch. Yeah, I'm worried, so this is me being meddlesome. Throw it away if it's a bother. I placed the sandwiches on Emily's desk. No, but really, don't throw it away. It's really good. Try it. I said that and stopped eating my lunch. Did you know my family runs a diner? A diner, the Harrisons' diner near the station. I'm the son of the diner owners. That's why it's good, I said. Emily hesitantly reached for the sandwiches. She took a small bite. For some reason, I felt relieved watching her as I continued eating my lunch. I had a sniffle. Emily. When I asked, Emily, with tears in her eyes, muttered, "It's delicious." My heart tightened. I had a feeling that something was up. If it's okay with you, I could be someone to talk to. There must be things you can't tell your friends, right? And with my words, Emily started to speak, little by little. I have a younger brother and sister. They're still little. I listened quietly to her story. But my father passed away 3 years ago, and now my mom is supporting us all by herself. So, I do the housework and take care of my siblings, even dropping them off and picking them up from daycare. I also cook the meals. Emily carefully took small bites of the sandwiches I gave her. Tears fell onto the sandwiches. So, we don't have much money. I can't work because I have to take care of my brother and sister. But even in such a situation, my mom let me continue my studies. So I feel like I have to endure everything, wiping her tears. Emily said that with a smile. My dinner is usually leftovers for my brother and sister, and I hardly have time for breakfast. But I have to keep going. After listening quietly, I spoke up. Come and eat at our place. Bring your brother and sister too. Thank you, but I can't afford it. And just your thought is enough, Emily invited. But everyone thought she was on a diet. What was she really feeling? I had no idea about her situation and carelessly commented on her pale complexion. I never imagined she had such circumstances. I never thought about the happiness of being able to have 3 meals a day. So maybe you're saying that I looked pale wasn't completely wrong, but it's for reasons like that. So don't worry about it. Thanks for worrying about me. You're the only one who noticed, Michael. It surprised me, Emily said, smiling. I couldn't smile. Don't worry about it. That's impossible, of course, after hearing about her situation. I waged my brain, though not the brightest, wondering what I could do. But there's not much someone like me can actually do. So I simply thought of helping her. Emily, here you go. The next day when lunchtime came, I approached Emily and placed a sandwich on her desk. As expected, Emily looked surprised. Michael, didn't I say Emily doesn't eat lunch? One of Emily's friends asked me. Yeah, but I want to give it, so it's okay. Emily stared at the sandwich on the desk. It's from Harrison's Diner, their special club sandwich. Be grateful and eat. Emily, you're a bit too thin. Saying that, I returned to my seat. Was it okay? Was it unnatural? Emily talked with her friend for a bit and then said to me, "Thank you," gratefully. She smiled brightly, and I felt a deep relief. Since then, I continued to give Emily a sandwich every day. Soon, everyone in the class knew about it. Hey, Michael, you like Emily, don't you? One of my classmates said that to me. It was when I was giving a sandwich to Emily. What? No, Emily, concerned about me, tried to refute it. She probably understood why I was giving her the sandwiches, but I didn't want her circumstances to be known. Is it a problem? The whole class buzzed at my words. You silly, right? If you're trying to impress Emily, there are better things than carbs every day. If you really liked her, you wouldn't do that. The classmate mocked and ridiculed me. But I retorted, I'm the son of the Harrison diner. I'm just giving her the sandwiches I think are most valuable. At that, the classmate tried to mock me again, but Emily's friend countered with a solid argument. It's none of your business, right? Thanks to that, no one else said anything to me. Emily kept saying, I feel guilty, and that's enough. But I said, if you don't eat it, just throw it away, and continued giving her sandwiches until graduation. I thought doing anything more would surely burden Emily, so that was all I felt I could do. Until graduation, no one discovered Emily's family situation. I sometimes worried that my actions were a nuisance, but on graduation day, her words to me, I will never forget your kindness, meant everything. Afterward, I went to culinary school. I got my chef's license and started my journey as a cook, aiming to protect our precious family diner, Harrison Diner. After graduating, I got a job at a traditional American restaurant. There, I learned the basics of American cuisine. I could have joined a family business right away, but my dad was still active, and Mom was also working hard alongside Dad. It didn't seem like there was a role for me yet. In Dad's words, don't waste the chance to learn, allowed me to acquire skills I wouldn't have learned at home. After working at the restaurant for about 5 years, I returned home. At first, there were clashes with Dad over the differences between the traditional restaurant and our diner. I complained about how the stock was made, or got scolded for changing the seasoning on my own. But fundamentally, whether it was the restaurant or a family diner, Dad, Mom, and I were the same. We all just wanted our customers to enjoy delicious food, that's all. This isn't a fancy restaurant. Customers come here for good food, not just fancy stock, Dad said. I know your stock is tasty, but if it increases costs, we have to change our prices. We have our own way of doing things. Don't compare us to others. That's not why I told you to learn, Dad said. These words made me reflect deeply. Without realizing it, I had been comparing our diner to the restaurant. I was trying to change what was good about our place. Sorry, I was wrong, I apologized. Dad silently accepted my apology. Seeing this, Mom just quietly smiled, looking pleased. From then on, I saw Dad as my master and learned cooking from him. Of course, my experience in the restaurant wasn't wasted. I learned to make dishes using stock ingredients and to add vegetable scraps to the stock, among other things. Ah, the stock has more depth now, Dad acknowledged. We became partners in protecting Harrison Diner. But those days didn't last long. Though we were in a prime location near the station, the competition was fierce. Just about 2 years ago, a fast food chain opened, and about a year ago, a family-style restaurant. The arrival of these two competitors clearly dealt a major blow to our business. Office workers preferred the quick service of the family-style restaurant, and students liked the hearty meat and fried food of the fast food chain. To adapt, we introduced quicker pasta and started offering takeout, including fried food combos aimed at students. However, we couldn't compete with the chain stores that offered cheaper meals due to their bulk purchasing power. This diner, where I grew up since I was little, as I grew older, I worked alongside Dad, trying various strategies to keep it going. But the number of customers dwindled, and we had many days that felt like we were closed even when we were open. Our regulars and friends who occasionally visited would say, "Don't give up and keep going." But it was hard to know what more we could do. That day we had no customers at all. The diner was eerily quiet during lunchtime. "Maybe we should close the diner," I said, And Dad responded, "Yeah, I think so. We've reached our limit." His voice, resigned and sad, echoed in my heart, and Mom just looked down. I felt like crying, seeing the two of them like that. "Sorry. I know you did your best, but sometimes things just end, no matter what." Dad patted my shoulder. He was probably more inclined to cry than I was. The silence was broken by the sound of the door opening. We instinctively looked up. "Hello," I said brightly, as if to blow away the heavy air from earlier. Even if we were closing, I wanted to cherish every customer until the end. "Hello, how are you?" echoed Dad and Mom, also brightening up. The person who entered wasn't a regular. She was a slender, beautiful woman I didn't recognize. "Please, have a seat here," Mom offered as she removed her sunglasses. The woman said, "No, I'm not here for a meal." "Dad, Mom," and I froze at her words. Then the woman looked at me and smiled. "I'd like to order lunch for the next 10 years. Is that possible?" I blurted out. Surprised, both of my parents were equally stunned by this unexpected order. Then the woman chuckled at our reaction. "Is 10 years too short? How about 30 years? She joked with a mischievous smile. That smile triggered a memory in me. "Hey, it's been a while, Michael." It was her. I stepped forward. "Emily, is that you?" "Wow, it's been so long." Yes, the beautiful woman was Emily, the same classmate I used to give sandwiches to in high school. The unexpected reunion filled me with joy. "Mom, make some coffee. Come on, have a seat," I urged, but Emily laughed. "I'm not here for a meal. I wanted to order some lunch." I tilted my head in confusion. While Mom prepared the coffee, we sat facing each other at the table. "What do you mean? And what are you up to now? Are you doing well?" I asked, and Emily replied, "You didn't know. I'm kind of a celebrity now." Emily began her story about her life after graduating from high school. Apparently, she was introduced to a cooking class by a senior at the company where she worked as an office clerk. The class focused on nutritious and budget-friendly cooking. Being new, the class offered her a spot as a monitor. Concerned about her own pale complexion, which I had pointed out, and constantly worrying about her siblings' health, Emily was drawn to the class's focus on nutritious and budget-friendly cooking. Emily began arranging the recipes she learned in her cooking class and sharing them on social media. Of course, she knew there were people who couldn't afford to attend cooking classes, so she thought that by sharing her knowledge, she could help someone. Her teacher was pleased with her promotion and happily allowed her to continue. As a result, Emily's social media followers rapidly increased. This led to a book deal with a publisher, where she co-authored a recipe book with her cooking teacher. "Well, that's amazing," I said, smiling. I was genuinely happy for her. It seems like Emily's success is telling me that what I did was not a mistake. Well, it might be a bit of pride on my part. And now I'm a YouTuber and a culinary researcher, doing my own broadcasts, she added. "A YouTuber?" I exclaimed, surprised. And Emily laughed. "Is it that surprising?" The idea of being a YouTuber often implies being quite famous. It made sense when Emily mentioned she was somewhat of a celebrity. She seemed like someone from a different world. That made her reason for being here even more puzzling. She must have sensed my confusion and explained, "Actually, a girl from our class who I was close with told me that Harrison Diner was going through tough times. I wanted to see if there was anything I could do, so I came today." "I see, thank you," I said, expressing my gratitude. Emily then said, "I should be the one thanking you. You don't know how much you helped me back then. It wasn't just the sandwiches, but also your thoughtfulness and kindness." I looked up at her. The person I am today is because of you, Michael. You pointed out my pale complexion and provided those sandwiches, which are from here. So, for this diner, I'll order for 10 years, 20 years, however long it takes. Now it's my turn to help you. Tears welled up in my eyes. Thank you, I managed to say, and she just smiled happily. I'll deliver lunch every day, I promised. Could you also make them for my brother and sister? They need lunch for school every day, she asked, tears streaming down my face as I repeatedly nodded at her words. After that, Emily and I kept in regular contact. It wasn't just about the lunch. I didn't want to let this opportunity Emily gave me go to waste. Swallowing my pride, I asked Emily to teach me about cooking. I can't let pride waste an opportunity to learn, I thought. That was something Dad had told me after I graduated from culinary school. We started focusing on budget-friendly cooking to cut costs and creating nutritious meals to differentiate from other eateries. This approach attracted a younger clientele and, thanks to social media, brought in customers of all ages. Our diner regained its bustling atmosphere and our business stabilized. Emily promoted Harrison Diner's secret recipes on her YouTube channel, which also brought us great publicity. We built a new friendship, supporting and being supported by each other. One day while chatting, I said to Emily, "Hey, why don't you come and eat here with your brother and sister? You've been having our lunch, but you've never visited the diner, right? Your mom is welcome too." Emily was delighted by my invitation. Back in high school, I had once suggested bringing your brother and sister along, but at that time, Emily declined, saying she couldn't afford it. Of course, I never intended to charge her then or now. I just wanted to make her happy. On the day of closing, I opened the diner and cooked for the 4 of them. "What would you like to order?" I asked. They looked at each other and then said, "Some sandwiches, please, sandwiches." I was taken aback. Sandwiches weren't on the menu. Although I used to boast about Harrison Diner's special sandwiches, those were just something Mom made. "I really wanted my mom, brother, and sister to taste your family sandwiches," Emily said. To her, those sandwiches were something special. I smiled and served them a simple meal of sandwiches, soup, and salad. Watching them happily savouring the food was incredibly fulfilling. Afterward, Emily's brother and sister left with their mother for their evening classes. They thanked me, looking happy, which I appreciated greatly. Left alone, Emily offered to help with the dishes, but I declined. It was my job after all. It was really delicious. "Thank you for making it again," she said. Well, back then, it was either Mom or me who made them, but actually it was mostly Mom. I confessed. I knew it. There were times when they were a bit different, she laughed. "Really sorry, that must have been me," as I hardly apologized. Emily shook her head, laughing. "No, I was happy, and even when they teased you about liking me, you sacrificed yourself to make it easier for me, when in fact, I was the one who liked you, really." I was stunned as Emily blushed slightly. I looked at her, fled as she continued, "I want to be there for you, Michael, to support you." I nodded at her words and said, "And I want to be someone who can help you whenever you need it." Eventually, Emily and I went from being friends to lovers and got married. Years later, Harrison Diner and Emily's YouTube channel are still very popular. Emily has gained a little weight. She seems self-conscious about it. But when I tell her, "You're the most beautiful now," she smiles happily. My colleague Eva, who had suffered a terrible accident, was working with her head down, avoiding people's eyes. Suddenly, an inappropriately loud laugh disrupted the somber atmosphere of the office. Look at that battered face. You're like a monster. Monsters shouldn't come to the office, haha. The unreserved, loud voice of our boss, Kevin, struck her heart like a sharp arrow. Ava, who had been holding on until the last moment, finally couldn't hold back and started to shake her shoulders slightly. The moment I saw a tear drop from her face, which she covered with her hands, my head heated up in anger. I'm fed up with losing the smiles of those I care about. With that thought, I began to plan a meeting with a certain person. My name is Tyler. I'm a 35-year-old ordinary office worker. My family runs a hospital, and I was given everything I needed since I was young. My parents allowed me to freely pursue any hobbies or interests I had and provided a good environment for my education. However, I had no outstanding talents and realized by the time I entered elementary school that I had no particular skills. In contrast to me, my younger brother, 2 years my junior, Kyle, quickly achieved notable results. Kyle, with intelligence much like our father's, continued to deliver results one after the other, quickly becoming the focus of our father's expectations. But I didn't resent that. Instead, I was thankful that I could live freely without any constraints. However, this relationship crumbled during middle school. While I aimlessly attended a local middle school, Kyle was accepted into a prestigious middle school in New York. Seeing Kyle aiming for medical school to follow in our father's footsteps, I started to feel a sense of alienation. My father also seemed to pay attention only to Kyle, as if I didn't exist. Having lost all confidence, I became unable to attend school and started to shut myself in my room. The one who continued to love me unchanged was my mother. You have your own strengths, don't worry. There are so many fun things in the world. You don't have to rush. My mother was an optimist and always reassured me. Hearing her words somehow eased my anxiety, and I felt that I had value as I was. Thanks to her, I managed to graduate from middle school and went on to a local high school. I had been playing games as a hobby, and on a whim, I decided to create my own game, which was unexpectedly well received when I presented it at the school festival. Seeing me interact with classmates through my game, my mother was very pleased. I'm glad you found something you're passionate about. I still clearly remember her smiling face when she said that. It was soon after that when my mother was diagnosed with a serious illness. The once cheerful mother grew thinner and lost her energy day by day. The treatment started, but it was only enough to slow the progression of the illness, not cure it. The medication made her lose a lot of weight and she lost her hair. Eventually, she couldn't live at home anymore and spent her days lying in her hospital bed. Just before she passed away, she muttered with a sad face, "Why me? I still want to live." The sight of my grieving mother was so painful that I wanted to look away, and it's deeply etched in my memory. Afterward, I became a working adult and joined a newly established game company, determined not to disappoint my mother in heaven. I dedicated myself to work every day. "Good morning, you're looking down again. Cheer up." The one who greeted me energetically was my colleague Ava. She was cheerful and friendly to everyone, brightening the atmosphere at work. Not only was her mood uplifting, but she was also highly skilled, having contributed to several hit projects as a programmer. Talented, action-oriented, and beautiful, Ava was indeed a perfect woman. She never got carried away by her abilities and always approached her work with seriousness, which I deeply respected. Ava, with her eyes sparkling, approached me just as I arrived at work. "Hey, I heard we're getting a new department head. I wonder what kind of person they'll be," she said. "Oh, that's right. Starting today, the new department head, an elite graduate from a prestigious university, was specially recruited from another company by our upper management." We were initially hopeful about the new department head's arrival, but within a month, we were fed up. The department head, named Kevin, was in his prime working years in his 40s. However, he seemed quite confident in himself and never tried to hide his attitude that he was superior in any situation. "I'm the reason this company's performance improved. Stop complaining and just follow the orders." With an annoyingly loud voice and a pompous attitude, he ordered his subordinates around. Because of Kevin's habit of asserting his superiority at every opportunity, the previously relaxed atmosphere of our workplace gradually became tense and uncomfortable. Kevin, without considering the situation on the ground, kept bringing in more work. As a result, the employees were forced to work tirelessly, ending up with daily overtime. Despite this, since the numbers showed an increase in the department's sales, the upper management praised Kevin. This led to a vicious cycle where Kevin's attitude became even more arrogant, and his unreasonable demands on his subordinates continued unabated. It would have been tolerable if he was competent, but when Kevin came along with me to meet a client, insisting on his superiority even there, it ended terribly. During the final discussions with the client, Kevin interjected, "What? You can't even handle this level of work and outsource it to us?" Kevin, as usual, looked down on the client with his condescending attitude. The moment my face turned pale and the client became furious, announcing the deal was off happened simultaneously. Years of trust I had built with the client were destroyed by a single comment from Kevin. "How could you do this?" This client was supposed to work with us for the next 10 years. I protested to Kevin when we got back, but he nonchalantly retorted, "What's the point of any plan if it doesn't make money? It's a waste of time." Talking to such a small client, Kevin seemed completely unconcerned about the broken deal being his fault. "The company's profit comes first. This is the problem with you. I've been working hard to earn that client's trust. You've made all that effort go to waste because of your actions, Kevin." Kevin glared at me menacingly as I protested impulsively. "If you're going against me, you better be prepared. I can always complain about your work attitude to upper management." Kevin's veiled threat of punishment made me bite my lip and fall silent. After my mother's death, my performance at the company was all that supported me, having never been recognized by anyone else. Yet the frustration only grew, having to work under such an irresponsible boss. I wanted nothing to do with him anymore, but the pain of having to see his face every day at work was unbearable. Since then, I've been careful to avoid working with Kevin as much as possible, but he kept causing trouble for other subordinates as well. He wouldn't bother to learn document preparation or administration procedures, saying such simple tasks should be done by subordinates, and dumped everything on us. At times, he would even take documents without asking, including taking documents containing sensitive personal information to another company. It nearly turned into a major crisis, but Ava, who was with him at the time, apologized profusely. Thanks to her, the situation didn't escalate, and it was resolved within our department, but it could have easily become an emergency that threatened the company's existence. Yet, Kevin continued his defiant attitude without admitting any fault. Preparing easy-to-understand materials for the supervisor is the subordinate's job. It was almost a big crisis because of your lack of attentiveness. Ava was the first to lose patience with Kevin's unapologetic behaviour. On the day of the personal information incident, Ava invited me out for drinks. She, too, had been troubled by Kevin's terrible attitude on a regular basis. "It's not just today. I went to a meeting with him before, and he started lecturing the client arrogantly, causing a lot of trouble," she said. I thought so. It's bad enough with people inside the company, but causing trouble for our clients is too much. So Ava and I ended up venting to each other. But there was nothing we could do about it. I was just hoping Kevin would be transferred out as soon as possible, but Ava had other plans. From the next day, Ava began to firmly say no to Kevin. That day, as Kevin was criticizing the work of his subordinates as usual, without providing any concrete suggestions for improvement, Ava spoke up. Taking her hand firmly in mine, I spoke with sincerity. "Don't worry about a thing. I'll always be here for you, so there's no need to worry," just as my mother used to encourage me. I spoke gently and gave her a reassuring smile. Working together at this company, Ava always greeted me with a radiant smile. Now was the time to return the favour, I thought as I gently patted her back with encouragement. Soon after, I was called in by the upper management. I was subjected to a stern questioning. It was about the incident where Kevin took documents containing personal information to another company. Somehow, the story had been twisted to suggest that it was not Kevin, but I who had made the mistake, and the management was grilling me. I had no recollection of such an event and desperately tried to explain, but no one would listen. Before I knew it, my transfer to a rural area was decided. All this happened just a few hours after my confrontation with Kevin. It was too well executed to be coincidental, and later an unbelievable truth came to light. Kevin had apparently been doing this kind of thing repeatedly in the past. Whenever he made a mistake, he would take his time to set up a subordinate to take the fall. He would fabricate all the evidence and then suddenly pin the blame on a subordinate, rushing the upper management decision to transfer or fire them before they could respond. This way, the blame for the mistake fell on an unsuspecting employee. Kevin planned to continue acting as a supervisor in the workplace, escaping any blame. The thought of being transferred because of someone else's mistake was unbearable. As I was fuming over what to do, I was called in by Nathan, who used to be my supervisor. Even if it was Kevin's suggestion, it's impossible for Tyler to do such a thing. But Kevin won't be satisfied with this situation as it is, Nathan said. It's frustrating, but we're currently devising a plan against Kevin. I'm sorry, but could you pretend to be transferred for a while? Nathan then suggested. I take some paid leave, having focused on work calls this time. I had about 3 weeks of vacation accumulated. Since Ava's accident, I had been working non-stop to fill the gap left by such a capable employee. Encouraged by Nathan's words to think of it as an extended break, I accepted the proposal. As I was about to leave the company, Nathan quietly informed me of something else. He mentioned contacting a certain individual. It was Harrison, the chairman of the group of companies overseeing ours. Chairman Harrison was often travelling around the world and rarely had the chance to return to America. But he was scheduled to come back to America soon, and Nathan would reach out to him on my behalf. Grateful for Nathan's arrangements, I decided to wait for the day I would meet Chairman Harrison. The first person I contacted that day was Kyle, now a respectable doctor and having taken over our father's hospital. I had great respect for Kyle, but it had been a while since we last spoke on the phone, so I was nervous as I listened to the ringing tone. Tyler, it's rare for you to call me. Hearing the familiar voice that hadn't changed over the years, I felt the tension in my shoulders ease. I pleaded with Kyle for help, sharing with him Ava's situation. I told him about the injuries she sustained in the accident and my desire to heal the scars on her face as much as possible. After pondering for a while, Kyle promised to do everything within his power to help. I'd like to see her condition myself. I might be busy, but can you come to our hospital? I told Kyle we'd come right away and hung up. Ironically, thanks to Kevin, I had 3 weeks of paid leave and was ready to move at any time. I immediately contacted Ava and rushed to Kyle's hospital. I appreciate the thought, but are you sure they can treat me? The doctor I saw said it would be difficult without a highly skilled physician. Eva looked at me with a mix of hope and uncertainty. Besides, they said the good doctors are so popular that I couldn't get an appointment for the next 2 years. No problem. I'm sure it will be fine. The doctor she mentioned was probably Kyle. Kyle is a skilled plastic surgeon who has treated thousands of cases of scars, burns, and injuries. As the scars and indentations are carefully treated, the patient's expressions brighten. Kyle once said that seeing their smiles is the greatest reward of all. Supporting a worried Ava, we hurried to the hospital where Kyle was waiting in a consultation room. Kyle carefully examined Ava's facial injuries and nodded confidently. "It's okay. There's no damage to the bones, and the damaged nerves around the mouth can be carefully repaired with surgical suturing. Let's schedule you for surgery." Encouraged by his confident words, Ava looked up in surprise, straightening her back with the vivacity she had before the injury. She finally showed a smile. Once the hospital stay and surgery were scheduled, we discussed the plans on our taxi ride home. I thought I'd have to live with this face forever, but the thought of being able to return to how I was before makes me so happy. Seeing Eva's spirits lifted, I too felt relieved. Thanks to Kyle, she was able to look forward again. I'll definitely get back at Kevin once I'm healed. I won't forgive him. I thought her anger was due to his comments at the office, but as she elaborated, I was horrified. It wasn't just what he said that was awful, but the cause of the accident. He was road raging. He braked suddenly and swerved lanes just because he didn't like the car behind us. Eva began to recount the situation at the time of the accident, still seething with anger. Although Kevin claimed Eva was driving that day, it turned out he insisted on driving himself. But his driving skills were poor, and Eva, sitting in the passenger seat, was nervous. At one point, Kevin sneezed and accidentally hit the brakes. The sudden braking during the drive led to the car behind them honking lightly. However, Kevin, mistaking it for provocation, became furious. He started braking abruptly and swerving to obstruct the lane change of the car behind, thinking of retaliating. Eva tried to calm Kevin down and offered to drive instead, but his pride wouldn't allow him to stop his reckless driving, saying he was just teaching a rude person a lesson. As a result, distracted by the car behind, Kevin caused an accident, but covered up the fact that he was driving during the investigation, just as he always did at work. He pinned blame on his subordinate. Upon hearing that, I acted quickly. I checked the dash cam footage from the company car involved in the accident to find the relevant footage. With all preparations complete, I awaited the day of reckoning, feeling relieved. Meanwhile, with Ava and me absent from the company, Kevin was visibly in a better mood. "If you defy me, you'll end up like Tyler and Ava, unable to stay in the company," he threatened, harassing any employee he disliked. As reports of his behavior reached me, my 3-week paid leave came to an end, and it was time to return to work. Executive Nathan called me in and asked me to wait in a room at the company. Chairman Harrison, who had just returned from an overseas inspection, was visiting the company, causing a stir since the morning. Kevin, on the other hand, was eager to meet Chairman Harrison and promote himself, pacing near the office. When Chairman Harrison arrived, he began chatting with Nathan. Kevin, having no business there, hovered nearby, desperate for attention. After about 10 minutes of conversation, Chairman Harrison turned to Kevin with a surprised expression, as if he had just noticed him. "So, you're the famous Kevin I've heard about, an elite graduate from a prestigious university. I hear I've been told your department has seen a significant improvement in performance." "Thank you very much." Even Kevin, as self-centered as he is, seemed unable to behave recklessly in front of the chairman of the group company. If an employee as capable as you can get along well with that person. Chairman Harrison's words trailed off, leaving an air of expectation in the room. I'm sure you'll achieve great results together. After all, that person is one of the most promising talents in our company, Chairman Harrison said, intentionally leaving Kevin puzzled. With an exaggerated gaze around the room, he then grew stern as he pressed on. It seems my grandchild is nowhere to be seen here. Kevin, not knowing who he was referring to, started to sweat and panic. Chairman Harrison lowered his voice and interrogated him. Your grandchild works at this company, Kevin. Trembling and sweating profusely at the menacing tone of Chairman Harrison's voice, Kevin was at a loss for words. That's when I, who had been waiting in the next room, made my appearance. Ignoring Kevin, who was staring at me in shock, I turned to Nathan. Thank you for the 3-week break. It was very refreshing. I'm glad you could rest. Keep up the hard work. At that point, Kevin seemed to realize something as he stared intently at me. Then, Chairman Harrison approached me, starting a cheerful conversation. I thought you might have been transferred out since you were gone, he said. As if I could be transferred from a subsidiary company owned by my grandfather, I replied. Saying that, I slowly turned to look at Kevin. He must have been quite taken aback by the unexpected turn of events. His eyes were wide open, and his mouth was moving silently. In fact, this group company founded by my grandfather operates in a wide range of fields, from the hospital where my father and Kyle work to the management of my game company, I continued. However, I had joined this company without using my family's connections, so only the president and Nathan knew this fact. After a while, Kevin coughed a few times and then started talking to me in a strangely familiar tone, as if hearing this for the first time. I always thought Tyler was an exceptional employee, truly worthy of being Chairman Harrison's grandson, he said. Enough with the lies. I've heard all about you from my grandson. Chairman Harrison's words left Kevin opening and closing his mouth in a futile attempt at excuses. Moreover, you caused an accident and then fled, pushing the blame onto a subordinate. Leave this company immediately. Unable to make his usual excuses, Kevin let out a pitiful cry and staggered out of the company. Afterwards, the company submitted the dash cam footage to the police. Our company's dash cams recorded not only the front and rear of the vehicle, but also the interior. The footage clearly showed Kevin's reckless driving at the time of the accident. Kevin, having caused the accident, had the paramedics set Eva away first. Then he falsely reported to the police that the severely injured Ava was the one driving. Normally, such a thing would be difficult to cover up, but it turns out Kevin's uncle holds a significant position within the police force and tried to sweep it under the rug. Apparently, his uncle also found it inconvenient to have a relative involved in a scandal, and Kevin had been let off for minor offences like parking violations in the past. He must have thought he could hide this accident as well. Kevin's cowardice in engaging in reckless driving and then trying to pin the blame on Ava outraged the employees. Ava, unaware of these details, was quite shocked to learn the truth. Preoccupied with her facial scars, she never dreamed she would be made responsible for the accident. It was all a part of Kevin's despicable scheme to evade responsibility. As a result, Kevin was arrested by the police with evidence against him and his attempt at malicious evidence tampering. He was expected to face severe punishment. The last time I saw him, Kevin had lost the confidence he once had and looked gaunt and pale, a shadow of his former self. I hope he spends the rest of his life facing up to the crimes he committed and doing his best to make amends. Afterwards, I visited Ava post-surgery to support her through her recovery. Though she may not have returned completely to her former self, she now smiles at me without hiding her face. Her bright expression was just like the Ava I knew before. I've never been more grateful to have a skilled plastic surgeon as a brother. Furthermore, Ava's surgery led me to reconnect with my family from whom I had been estranged. To my surprise, my father and Kyle had purchased the games I was involved in. "Your games are really interesting," Kyle said, the skilled plastic surgeon engrossed in my creation, which brought a laugh to my lips. Feeling previously alienated, I now realized my family had always been waiting for me despite my avoidance. This connection was all thanks to Ava. Now Ava's beauty has fully returned to her face. "Tyler, you're my savior." "Thank you so much," she said, extending her hand, which I gladly took. As we looked into each other's eyes, we both smiled, our cheeks relaxing in unison. The incompetence finally leaves Haw. Mike, who settled in as the acting CEO, mocks me. His entourage of employees also looks down on me, smirking. If I leave, all of the CEO's favourites will be fired. Mike's sister, the executive vice president Alice, bites her lip in frustration. "What are you thinking? If Jack leaves the company, it really won't be able to function," she says. "Shut up. I'm the acting CEO, and you're the EVP. If you can't listen to me, then you should resign too," snaps Mike. The CEO's wife, Linda, is completely on Mike's side. "If I resign, Mike will take over the company, and I have no power to stop it," Alice says. Watching this family-run business's internal strife is painfully distressing. I might as well resign. "Thank you for everything up till now," I hum my head. Deeply, as I raise my head, I see that Mike, Linda, and the other employees have turned pale. Turning around, I am astonished. My name is Jack. I'm a 32-year-old salesman working for a mid-sized design company, Harrison Design. Our company is family-run, with the upper management having the last name Harrison. The CEO is Mr. Harrison, the executive vice president is his son Mike, and the managing director is his daughter Alice. The CEO's wife, Linda, doesn't hold an official position, but she often comes to the office to complain about the employees. I've heard that family-run businesses often turn into tough workplaces. Indeed, Linda, who wanders around the office without doing any work, can be annoying at times. However, as long as I ignore her complaints, it's a pretty good place to work. The primary reason is that Mr. Harrison, the CEO, is a very respectable person. He never throws his CEO status around and always considers the employees' opinions. That's why our company has a good atmosphere. The employees work comfortably without harbouring any grievances. Mr. Harrison's children joined the company's leadership about 5 years ago. His eldest daughter, Alice, is a year older than his son Mike, but Alice is just the managing director, and Mike is the executive vice president. Alice doesn't really complain about this. A graduate from a renowned university in a major city, Alice is extremely capable and never brags about it. She puts the employees' comfort first, making her the type of female supervisor you'd willingly follow. On the other hand, Mike, who became the executive vice president, is somewhat problematic. Before joining his father's company, Mike travelled the world as a backpacker, while Alice gained experience in another design office. There's nothing wrong with world travel, but Mike seems unable to shake off his student mentality and doesn't like hearing anything unpleasant. Perhaps our company still clings to a male-dominated society, given Mike's promotion despite being younger. Linda's influence is a major factor in Mike's usefulness. She dotes on Mike and seems to indulge all his whims. Yet, as the son of the respectable Mr. Harrison, Mike will probably change as he gains experience. I thought I was still young, but it's been 10 years since I graduated college. During that time, I've worked solely for Harrison Design. As more young people join, I feel my age. I try my best not to become an unpleasant supervisor. Additionally, I have a unique connection with Mr. Harrison. He enjoys playing chess, but few people in the office can match him. While there are people who play pool and checkers, I'm one of the few who can play chess. So we often play in his office during lunch breaks or after work. We don't hold back, and our win rates are about even. "Well, I lost today. Maybe I'm getting old," says Mr. Harrison. "What are you talking about, Mr. Harrison? We still need you to keep going strong," I reassure him. Mr. Harrison, having turned 60 the other day, started to worry about his age. From my perspective, he's still plenty young, vibrant, and the perfect example of a 60-year-old professional. It seems his concern about his age hardly comes from the fact that his son, Mike, is still not capable enough to be left in charge with confidence. Leading with a loss wasn't satisfying. "How about it, Jack? One more game?" "Sure, but I won't go easy on you," I reply. Mr. Harrison laughs heartily, and we begin setting up the chess pieces again. Then, one day, something happened. A female employee rushes out of the CEO's office in a panic. "Somebody call an ambulance." Mr. Harrison collapsed, right after he said he's having chest pains. As we employees head towards the CEO's office, we find the door open, and several employees have already crowded inside. I hear the loud voices of Mike and Alice. "Dad, hang in there. I'm loosening your tie now. Dad, you'll be okay. Just don't move. The ambulance is on its way." The paramedics arrived quickly and took Mr. Harrison away on a stretcher. Accompanying him were the Executive Vice President, Mike, and the Managing Director, Alice. Linda was at home and was informed. She said she would head straight to the hospital. Meanwhile, us at the office couldn't focus on work, anxiously waiting for news from Mike and Alice. Soon, Alice called the company. "Dad's completely unconscious now. He's in a critical condition with a high fever," she said. From that day, a wave of unease spread throughout the office. While we tried to keep working, everyone was whispering about the future of Harrison Design. If Mr. Harrison doesn't make it, will we all lose our jobs? No, the Executive Vice President and Managing Director are still here. One of them will take over, but one of them was a significant issue. I thought things might work out if Alice became the CEO, but I was only anxious about the future. If Mike took the position, there were several family meetings at the Harrison household. Ultimately, my worst fears were confirmed. Mike, as the eldest son, was appointed the acting CEO. This is what I think is the downside of family-run businesses. But it's not like the employees could vote for an acting CEO. The next day, Mike arrived at the office, taking on his new role with confidence. During the morning assembly, Alice, the managing director, announced it to all the employees. Mr. Harrison is still unconscious. Harrison Design is facing its biggest crisis since its founding. Let's rally behind the acting CEO and get through this crisis together. As I listen to Alice's words, I find myself lost in thought. Is this really okay for Alice? Is she truly satisfied with this? A few words, please, acting CEO. I know everyone is anxious at a time like this, but I need you to trust me and give it your all. If we all work hard, surely my father's condition will improve. One of Mike's supporters starts clapping. Soon, Other employees join in with the applause. I join in while intently watching Alice. Trying not to reveal her true feelings, she joins the applause with a cold smile. An employee standing next to me mutters softly, "What's going to happen?" Now, I'm really worried. It seems I'm not the only one feeling anxious. A few days have passed since Mike became the acting CEO, and its sect is already apparent. Mike has begun implementing major layoffs. It's been 5 years since Mike joined Harrison Design, and there are quite a few employees who are dissatisfied with him. Unfortunately, I am one of them. It appears he wants to get rid of anyone he considers a nuisance. For now, let me explain what's happened so far. Before the layoffs started, Linda had begun frequenting the CEO's office. I don't know what they were discussing, but it didn't seem like good news for us employees. "Hey, someone take some tea to the CEO's office and check out the situation," a female employee said. We all held our breath, listening to the sound. But unfortunately, hardly any voices leaked out. We waited for the female employee who delivered the tea to return. Soon she came back running. It looks like layoffs are definitely happening. Anyone who doesn't align with the acting CEO's views is out. That means those who oppose the executive vice president, no, the acting CEO in the past, are definitely targets. What should we do? I've been pretty outspoken. If that's the case, I'm in a similar boat, I said. Ever since Mike and Alice joined the company, it was clear who sided with the EVP and who with the MD. I was firmly anti-Mike, meaning I supported Alice. Then, 2 of Mike's supporters from the CEO's office walked in, and we all fell silent. What's this? A funeral? It's so quiet here. We need to support Harrison Design under the acting CEO now. Well, who knows how many of you will remain? Just you wait and see. The 2 supporters exchanged glances and burst into loud laughter. It seemed their future was secure. And so, from the next day, one by one, people were let go. First, it was those who openly opposed Mike's methods. Then, those who had never voiced opposition but sided with Alice when issues arose. Alice became increasingly isolated. It seems Mike drove Alice out of Harrison Design. Despite being siblings with just a year's age difference and sharing the same parents' blood, why couldn't they get along? Eventually, I was the only one left supporting Alice. Alice bit her lip in frustration. My mother always favoured Mike. I've always been the one to oppose her, so I guess I'm not the favourite, Alice said. Is the acting CEO, Mike, regularly visiting Mr. Harrison at the hospital? I asked. Alice shook her head. Weekly. He's left it all to the hospital. He seems to think there is no hope for recovery. Mike is going to take over Harrison Design for good. Alice, are you visiting Mr. Harrison in the hospital? How is his condition? I inquired. There's been a significant change, actually a good one. But Mike's actions have been so swift. I'm not sure if it's going to be in time, Alice replied. The fact that she mentioned in time suggests there might still be a chance for Mr. Harrison's return to the company. I felt a glimmer of hope in the darkness. Alice, next time you visit Mr. Harrison, please take me with you. I might not be able to make much difference, but I want to help in any way I can for his recovery, I offered. Thank you. I haven't been to visit in the last few days. Let's go right after work today, Alice agreed. Just then, one of Mike's supporters approached and directed me to the CEO's office. Alice's face tensed up. It looked like my time had come to be let go. I bowed deeply to Alice. It's finally time. It's hard to leave you behind, but I guess I have to face him now, I said. I'm coming with you. "I can't stand this outrage," Alice declared. We both entered the CEO's office. Mike sat in a high-back luxury chair, one of his supporters standing to his right, and Linda, looking pleased, stood further to the side. The supporter who had let me quickly positioned himself to Mike's left. "Jack, you're also fired as of today, but you've dedicated 10 years to the company, so we'll call it early retirement. You'll get a decent severance package, so don't worry," Mike announced. There was no point in making a scene. I quietly nodded, understood. Mike mockingly laughed at me, glad the incompetent is finally gone. His supporters looked down on me, smirking. Alice bit her lip in frustration but quickly retaliated. "What are you thinking? If Jack leaves the company, it really won't be able to function." "Shut up. I'm the acting CEO, and you're the MD. If you can't follow my orders, then you should resign too," Mike snapped. Then Linda, who had been standing to the side, spoke up. "You're just like a Leafs body now, unable to do anything. You're talented, so why not get hired by another company?" "Mom, are you saying I'm unnecessary for this company?" Alice asked. "Oh, you're just realizing that now. This company will be inherited by Mike alone. Don't worry, we'll adequately replace the employees we've lost," Linda said smugly. "Are these the words a mother bestows upon her own daughter, to whom she gave life? Once I leave, Mike's takeover will be complete." "But I never had the power to stop it in the first place," Alice said. "Watching this family-run business split from the inside is heart-wrenching." I feel sorry for Alice, but I'm exhausted too. Maybe it's better to just resign. "Mike, Alice, Linda, I truly appreciate everything you've done for me," I said. I hummed my head deeply. As I raised my head, I saw the pale faces of Mike, Linda, and their supporters. Turning around, I was astonished. There was Mr. Harrison in a wheelchair. A nurse dressed in plain clothes was pushing the wheelchair. "The doctor gave me permission to come out for an hour," Mr. Harrison said. Though he looked a bit thinner, Mr. Harrison's eyes were sharp, and he radiated energy. Linda staggered toward Mr. Harrison. "When did you recover enough to use a wheelchair?" Linda exclaimed. "You and Mike never visited, so you wouldn't know, but my condition has been improving day by day," Mr. Harrison replied. "Oh, that's good. I've been worried all this time," Linda said. Mr. Harrison snorted and looked away from Linda, turning instead to Mike. "I see you've done quite as you pleased in my absence. Remember, you're only the acting CEO, not the CO," Mr. Harrison asserted. Initially, Mike seemed unable to grasp the situation, but as Mr. Harrison spoke with firm authority, Mike began to tremble. I was just thinking of the company's best interests." "I thought you were done for," Mike stammered. "You underestimated me. I'm not one to be incapacitated by something like this. My pulse has stabilized, and my fever has gone down," Mr. Harrison asserted. "That's great. I've been so worried," Mike replied, trying to sound sincere. Mr. Harrison glared at Mike. "Don't say things you don't mean. But fine, it's probably your mother's influence anyway. It's a misunderstanding, dear. I would never put such ideas in Mike's head," Linda protested. "I've known you long enough to know better anyway, Alice. I'm feeling a bit tired. Could you call an assisted taxi to take me back to the hospital?" Mr. Harrison requested. "Of course, Dad. I'll have you give orders from your hospital room." "I'll be your hands and feet," Alice responded. Thanks to the incredible commotion, my early retirement was called off. Mr. Harrison's recovery has been remarkable. He's been working hard on rehabilitation to rebuild the muscles that weakened during his hospital stay. Gradually, he started to walk on his own again. I began visiting the hospital room daily with Alice, and each time we saw him, he seemed more energetic. However, it looked like a full recovery would still take some more time. So, Alice brought a computer into Mr. Harrison's hospital room to make it easier for him to work. With Alice's assistance and me helping her, he could manage CEO duties from the hospital room. Despite being 60, Mr. Harrison is quite familiar with computers, so he was pleased to be able to work from his hospital room. He opened his laptop and turned on the power. "Well then, what should we tackle first?" Mr. Harrison asked. "First, let's restore Harrison Design to its original state." Alice displayed on the computer screen was a list of employees who had been fired. It might seem too good to be true to fire them on our own accord and then ask them to come back, but we can't operate without them. "I'm prepared to apologize to each of them personally," she said. "That's right. I'll join you in apologizing. None of this would have happened if I hadn't fallen ill in the first place," Mr. Harrison agreed. Following Mr. Harrison's instructions, the fired employees were brought back. We all rejoiced at being reunited with smiles. I'm relieved to be reinstated. "I was worried about my remaining mortgage," one employee said. "That's good to hear. Let's continue to support Mr. Harrison," another added. With this, 90% of the original staff was restored. Unfortunately, we couldn't say it was 100% back to the old company. Now we just need to post job openings and bring in new talent. A fresh breeze would surely help the company grow even more. Eventually, Mr. Harrison was discharged and began attending work in a wheelchair. Getting sick is no joke. "If you let your guard down, your son might just take over the company," he joked. "That's right, Dad. We still need you to be strong," Alice agreed. Mr. Harrison and Alice had a genuinely good relationship, full of mutual trust. Unbeknownst to us, the Harrison family had split into two factions: Mr. Harrison and Alice, and Linda and Mike. Sadly, they were opposing each other. Linda must have loved Mr. Harrison to have married him. Maybe love between a man and a woman doesn't last forever. As an unmarried man, I had no right to comment. But with most of the employees back, it was time for retribution against those who had betrayed Mr. Harrison. First, both of Mike's supporters were fired. Those two being around made Mike overestimate himself, but the real culprit here is Linda, Mr. Harrison reflected. As time passed in their marriage, they both grew increasingly dissatisfied with each other. Gradually, Linda became overly affectionate towards only Mike. Mr. Harrison, worried about Mike's carelessness, but also showing his form of love, had appointed him as the executive vice president, a position higher than Alice's despite her being older. It seems this act of love didn't quite reach Mike's heart. Other employees who sided with Mike were only given severe warnings. Employees are vulnerable. They have to adapt to whoever is in charge. Mr. Harrison understood this and refrained from demotions or dismissals. The main culprits in this situation were undoubtedly Mike and Linda. For Mr. Harrison, they were his son and wife, but they had to be appropriately punished. Firstly, Mike was demoted to a regular employee for manipulating employee fates in Mr. Harrison's absence. This personal decision seemed to have hit Mike hard. Having been appointed executive vice president upon joining the company, and even using the CEO's office in his father's stead, it must have been unbearable for him. Ashamed of being a regular employee, Mike started coming to the office less frequently. For us in management positions, it was actually convenient not to have him around as it was unclear how to direct him. However, his frequent absences became a concern. So I asked Alice about his home situation. Alice lived alone, but Mike had always lived with their parents. So he's been shut in his room with the housekeeper leaving his meals in the hallway outside. It's unbelievable, Alice said. He might have lost his confidence all at once. I remarked, however, Linda, who dotes on Mike, blames the clue-like turmoil on Mr. Harrison's illness. Their marital relationship seemed irreparably damaged. Both Mr. Harrison and Linda, deeply caring for their children, were living together for their sake, even though it was a struggle. Mr. Harrison decided to punish Linda as well, barring her from entering the company. When Linda complained, Mr. Harrison showed her photos and documents gathered by a detective agency. "You've been having an affair all this time. Did you think I knew nothing about it?" He confronted her. The reason Linda frequently visited Harrison Design was because her lover was there. Her lover was a young employee in his 30s to whom Linda had been generously giving a lot of money. Since Mike became acting CEO, there had even been talks of promoting this man to a managerial position as a special favour. "I had feelings for you after all these years together, but with this incident, even that's gone. The money you squandered was earned through my hard work," Mr. Harrison lamented. Linda desperately made excuses, but Mr. Harrison was not willing to listen. As the CEO's wife, her attempts to privatize the company were a serious offense. Mr. Harrison and Linda ended up getting a late-life divorce. However, Linda's lover quickly submitted his resignation and returned to his hometown. Mike, who adored Linda, vehemently opposed the divorce. "It's unfair to Mom. How is she supposed to live? They divorced now. She should just work or do something. It's normal to work to live. You should try working for a change," Mr. Harrison responded. Eventually, Mr. Harrison fired Mike, who showed no inclination to work at all. Thus, Mike and Linda were both ousted from the house. Normally, a young and able son like Mike would work and support Linda. However, Mike just won't seem to get a job. Having been pampered as the executive vice president and acting CEO, it seems his pride won't allow him to work under someone else. As a result, their finances dwindled. Mother and son, with nowhere else to go, reluctantly returned to Linda's family home in the countryside. However, the house had passed on to Linda's brother and his wife. Knowing their plight, they couldn't turn them away. They were given a small room and lived there in constrained circumstances. As for those of us who remained at Harrison Design, Mr. Harrison fully recovered and no longer needed a wheelchair, though he used a cane just to be safe. But he walked firmly on his own feet. With the CEO's full return, the company regained its normalcy. I was promoted to head of the sales department in the next personal change. The responsibility was greater, but Mr. Harrison trusted me. With the support of my subordinates, I found my work fulfilling. Alice became the executive vice president, serving as an excellent confidant and advisor to Mr. Harrison. I should have appointed Alice as the executive vice president from the beginning. Then this clue-like incident would never have happened, Mr. Harrison said. "I understand you wanted to give Mike a chance, Dad, but it's good we realized early on that he wasn't capable," replied Alice. "They say the more troublesome a child is, the dearer they are." Mike was a perfect example of that. Mr. Harrison deeply regretted appointing Mike, who lacked ability, to the executive vice president position out of paternal affection. Thus, Harrison Design managed to recover from a significant crisis. The company's performance improved and employee wages increased. We, the employees, are now more motivated than ever to rally under Mr. Harrison's leadership and build up the company. That day, during lunch break, I was Mr. Harrison's chess partner in his office, just like before the hospital incident. Our skills matched, leading to wins and losses for both of us. Mr. Harrison seems to enjoy this aspect of the game. Like in business, golf, it's no fun if you go easy on me, he said. That's true. I completely understand. Mr. Harrison became silent for a while. Just when I thought he was focusing on the chessboard, he said something unexpected. Jack, aren't you going to get married? You're at a good age for it. I'm a bit embarrassed to say, but I've been so caught up in work that I haven't had a girlfriend. But you're right, I should start thinking about that aspect of my life. I may not have much credibility in giving marriage advice, considering how mine turned out, but maybe it's time you thought about settling down, he said. Maybe I should start attending mixers, then, I said. Just then, Alice entered the room with a knock. Oh, playing chess again. You two always get along so well, she said. The only one who plays with me is Jack. Mr. Harrison casually took a seat next to me, watching our match with interest. Jack, teach me chess too. I want to study and beat Dad someday, Alice said. That's a great idea. Playing against me all the time must be boring for Mr. Harrison, I said. Mr. Harrison looked back and forth between me and Alice, grinning. How about it? Shall the three of us go out for sushi tonight? That sounds lovely. Jack, are you free? I don't mind at all. I'd be happy to join, Alice said. Lately, it seems we're spending more time together like this. For me, it's the most comfortable and pleasant relationship, Mr. Harrison said. I was just telling Jack it's about time he thought about getting married. Alice, the same goes for you. Don't stay single forever. I want to see my grandchildren, Mr. Harrison said. Well, I do feel a bit rushed thinking about childbirth, but I don't have anyone in mind. Maybe I should go to the mixers, Alice said. Alice saying the same thing made me laugh. I was just saying the same thing, Alice. Shall we go to a mixer together next time? That would be nice. Make sure there are some handsome guys, Alice said. Maybe it would be quicker if you two got married. Mr. Harrison and I exchanged glances and laughed. I'd be lying if I said I hadn't thought about her in that way, but I felt I still lacked the credentials to ask her out. Looking at Alice beside me, she seemed to blush with embarrassment. I vaguely thought about asking her out for drinks, just the two of us.